Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Welcome, dear Matajis, to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. I will speak in English today, so wer kann kein Englisch verstehen oder nicht so? So da und Kishorikon, wo ist Kishorikon gegangen? Aber irgendwo, ja, aber sie kommt. You sit there, it's nicer. Yeah, you sit there, it's fine. Yeah, and very nice that Gayatri comes also. It's nice that we welcome the young generation. It's really not a problem, Kirti, if she's like around. We try our best to concentrate. As a mother myself, as you know, it is our challenge to have our concentration in two places. Okay. Kannst du bitte bei oder dein Stuhl? Auf einen Stuhl? Ja, ist ganz wichtig. Kishorikun, ich würde gerne in Deutsch sprechen, aber habe ich auch selber gesehen, dass wenn ich probiere, ein bisschen schweres Thema in Deutsch zu sprechen, es geht ein bisschen durcheinander. So I just said I would love to speak this in German, but when I try to speak a German, a little more complicated topic, my German is not so good, and also I start talking very quickly. Nice, okay. So, danke for the richtige verse. Thank you for the right verse. Okay. So, today we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 24, the Renunciation of Kadama Muni, text 19. Ayam siddhaka natishaha, yam siddhaka natishaha, ayam siddhaka natishaha, yam siddhaka natishaha, Sankacharya susammataha, Sankacharya susammataha, Sankacharya susammataha, Sankacharya susammataha, Loke kapila iti yakyam, Loke kapila iti yakyam, Kanta te kirti vadanaha, Ganta te kirti vadanaha. Ayam siddhagana dishaha sankacharya susamtaha loke kapila iti yakyam ganta te kirti vadanaha. Oh, please. Sankacharya susamtaha loke kapila iti yakyam gandhata kirti vadanaha. Ayam siddhagana dishaha sankacharya susammataha loke kapila iti yakyam gandhya. Ganta te kirti vadanaha. Ayam, this personality of Godhead. Siddha Gana, of the perfected sages. Adishaha, the head. This cough, huh? No. Sankhya Acharya, by Acharyas expert in Sankhya Philosophy. Susamataha, approved according to Vedic principles. Approved according to Vedic principles. Loke, in the world. Kapila iti, as Kapila. Akyam, celebrated. Ganta, he will go about. Te, your. Kirti, fame. Vadanaha, increasing. Okay, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Your son will be the head of all the perfected souls. He will be approved by the Acharyas, expert in disseminating real knowledge, and among the people he will be celebrated by the name Kapila. As the son of Devahuti, he will increase your fame. Purport. Sankhya philosophy is the philosophical system enunciated by Kapila, the son of Devahuti. The other Kapila, who is not the son of Devahuti, is an imitation. This is the statement of Brahma. And because we belong to Brahma's disciplic succession, we should accept this statement that the real Kapila is the son of Devahuti, and that real Sankhya philosophy is a system of philosophy which he introduced and which will be accepted by the Acharyas, the directors of spiritual discipline. The word susamata means accepted by persons who are counted upon to give their good opinion. So, dear devotees, I ask for your kind blessings that I can give the class today, which gives some inspiration for you all. So this verse speaks about Sankhya philosophy. And Sankhya philosophy is pure. The word Sankhya comes from the word to count, and it is a system of metaphysics that deals with the elemental principles of the physical universe. It's a system of spiritual knowledge that culminates in full consciousness of the Supreme Absolute. That's actually from the commentary from the teachings of Kapila Dev. So here in this purport, it also speaks that there is the son of Devahuti Kapila, and there was another imitation who tried to propose this version of Sankhya Philosophy. And there was a version, so an atheistic version, so one which didn't lead to God, and a theistic. So Kapila, the son of Devahuti, he promotes the Sankhya philosophy that teaches us and brings us back to Krishna. If one wants to go further into this, one can read from in the third canto, chapter 25 till 33. What is interesting about this, last time I think I gave lecture a little while ago, we were on the chapter Devahuti's Lamentation. Yeah, and so now always I have to turn myself here because the majority are here. Huh? So first we spoke about that actually Devahuti, she's a Mataji, she's a lady, but she's also lamenting. Huh? She's lamenting. Of course, it's one can say in a transcendental way, if lamenting can be transcendental. But again, later on you see, before Kapila Dev speaks about or starts with Sankhya philosophy or his teachings, again Mama Devahuti goes to her son and says, yeah, please help me. It says they were sitting down, it says when Kapila, he was sitting leisurely before her. Devahuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, so this verse, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of this sense disturbance, my lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental eye, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have risen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Devahuti continues, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which uncut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman, and between spirit and matter. The Lord was very humbled and happy, it says, when his mother inquired in such a way. And I thought it was a nice example. I know early in my spiritual life, first, and you've been here a while, and sometimes you come to class, and there's some names they throw at you, Kadama Muni, and this, and Maitreya Muni, and these, and he said, and thus said, and it's like a little like, oh my God, which one? Who was this? Who was the father? And who was the sage? And what's going on? And one a little afraid to say, actually, I'm not sure what you meant there, or I forgot what is it, because it's very easy to lose oneself in the trail of so many names, and because a story is being related, so by Maitreya Muni, at the same time relating about Kadama Muni and Devahuti. And all these things can get lost, lost in translation, to forget the meaning of what's going on here. Also, what's nice in Srimad Bhagavatam class, we go verse by verse, and I just read that it was simply 6 or so verses from chapter 25, just one chapter ahead. And it's good sometimes to get that perspective of what's happening when we listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam story. What's happening here when as a mother, one has to take care of the child. You're there in every step. And then as the child becomes older, one doesn't know. Sometimes the parents, at least at an old age, take shelter of the children. It's like a different part. Of course, here, Devahuti's son is no ordinary son. He is, of course, the Lord himself, Kapila. But still, in this way, it's very humbling to see a wise lady. You can see her humble way of inquiring from a realized soul. And in this way, she doesn't ask any complicated questions. She says, just tell me the difference between this man and woman and this nature and this, just to have an understanding, which Kapila Dev goes on later to do. He explains further, of course, the different 24 elements, I think they are, from false ego, intelligence, mind, to the different senses, and further and further. We were having a short conversation in Temple Shopper, 3 of us ladies, and we were speaking how sometimes, actually we like the practical things in spiritual life, we just want to, okay, what's practical to hear. And actually what's quite nice about these chapters, 25 to 33, they're quite practical. It explains, like, okay, what is the element of fire? How does it affect us in daily life? What is this element? Blah, blah, until it goes deeper and deeper, cuts down another layer, until we understand, okay, this is what we are governed by, like the material nature. We take this aside, and voila, we come back a little bit to our original selves, our eternal relationship with Krishna. When one practices or begins a practice of bhakti yoga, one thinks, 3 months I'll be a pure devotee, going back to Krishna. And then after maybe 2.5 months, one thinks, oh, a little difficult. Maybe not this life or next life, maybe not. And then later on, I asked a wise soul here, but I don't know if I can quote. I will quote it without saying the name. But I asked, so do you think we can go back to Godhead in this life? And she said, well, Prabhupada said so. We follow what's given to us. We follow sincerely, simply, and of course we can go back. I was like, wow. Today, as a few of you know, is a special day for me because 10 years ago, on the, I think it's 11th of January 2012, I bought a one-way ticket to Simhachalam. Just from England, but it was still a one-way ticket. So 10 years I came here. In English we say bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So it's just I don't think that translates to German. So it's just a way of saying when you're sort of very excited, neugierig, so about coming somewhere. I remember I wasn't afraid. I was like, that's it. How long are you coming for? Forever. Like, pack my things. Just the basics. It's okay, I'm living the spiritual life. Going to the temple. Going to live by Lord Nishingadev. Jai Nishingadev. And who was it? Krishna Karshini, she picked me up from Austria or somewhere where she picked me up always at that time, brought me here, very excited to be here. Everybody else is like looking a little half sleepy or something. I'm like, Jai, here you are. I think Nandi Mukhi Narahari were there. Welcome, you're here. On the same day, I was thinking, what have I done? Oh my God, I left my job behind. I was 32 years old, had my job, had my flat, had my friends, had my service in the temple, left it all behind with my one suitcase. Here I am. And then Akila Prabhu came into the prasadam room. It's like, Hare Krishna, Prabhupada disciple, sorry. I was like, yes, I've heard you're coming here to stay. I was like, oh God, what's he going to say? Okay. And he said, I have something. And he gave me something that you can hang coats on over the door, this. And I was like, wow. I said, okay, so I can stay, Akila, I can stay. He said, yeah, of course, why not? of course you can stay here. What's the problem? Like this. And I was like, wow, blessings, everywhere you're trying to get blessings. I was okay, yes, I have my coat hanger. I only have one coat, but still it's nice, like a whole. And in this way, I remember this sort of happy naivety, Jai will go. It wasn't the first time I'd come to Simhachalam. The first time was roughly around 18, 19 years ago, where I'd met, certainly the first devotees I met was Narahari Mataji and Nandimukhi. And soon a daughter who was Meera at the time, Madhvi Kishore, this was became a friend of mine. And in that moment of understanding, did I get sidetracked? I'm trying to think, no, it was a point related to the verse. In that moment where one comes and one surrenders, I think it also just mostly completed Bhakti Shastri at the manor, I thought I was equipped as a devotee, I knew everything, Of course, Krishna Shetram, he was Prabhu at the time, Maharaj wrote, you've just begun your studies. And I was like, just begun? I thought I've studied everything now, Bhakti Shastri, is that not everything? Wow, my God. And in that moment, I was like, okay, that's good. Here I'll be by Nishingadev. And okay, I won't be governed by the modes of material nature. When you study something, you quote it all the time, to people around you where I was working. I was like, yes, it's okay. I was in my workplace working as a charity manager. And I said, Michael, it's okay because it's just the governing that these people have according to their material nature. And I began to speak to him, it was a workplace in London. He was a nice person, like 20 years my senior, but also a vegetarian. And then I started to say, and he was like, and he stopped and he said, what do you mean? And I was like, oh goodness, I've stepped between my temple life and work life. And I said, I looked and I was like, oh, how do I continue? And I was like, okay, well, according to the Vedic system, so just to put it in kind of sort of ancient Indian system, there is the mode of passion, goodness, and ignorance, right? We have different, and I tried to keep it short because I felt I'd made a blunder that I started. And he was like, he said, I was Sangeeta. I said, Sangeeta, could you explain this a little bit more to me? It's very interesting, I need to know more. So of course I gave him a 30-minute speech and a diagram of how the material nature works and all of this sort of mode. It was very nice and interesting in this moment where one goes full flow into what one does. One can definitely say I was a bit overzealous, a little bit too ready. Ta-da! Hare Krishna! Let's sing and dance about Krishna. But still in this form, I was a very practical person. Like our dear Amrita here, we got somehow into the office and into the numbers, the treasurer. I say this because Sankhya means to count. And if you go deeper into it, it's called an analytical study of devotional service. And sometimes we've both secretly admitted, I say it publicly now, we're a bit nerd-like. We don't mind numbers. We don't mind going into things. We don't mind understanding the system and way things work. And it's very interesting if you're a practical person. Like when you're practical and you want to understand, okay, this is bhakti yoga, but there's many things I don't understand. So why am I completely entangled by, I don't know, my relationship with my parents, which don't work out? Why am I entangled with this or my thoughts here? When you understand how material nature works, and I mean it in a practical way, aside from emotions, then it's very easy to see how we've just got lost in the wheel of life. As we can understand it in our previous lives, for most of us before we became so-called devotees, we were entangled, be it with smoking or drinking or partying or just other things aside from Krishna. One can also see when we're in the temple and trying to live as devotees, we still have to work with the material nature that we have. Yes. by understanding, that's the true, on a practical level, if we really understand what material nature is and how we're governed by it. Hello, my dear. Hare Krishna. And then we can go, no. It was Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, someone told me, he used to have the children stay at the back at the class. He used to encourage that children were there. And as a speaker, of course, I'm distracted a little by Gayatri, but don't, Kirti, really, it's not a thing, but it's a part of our culture too, that we understand, especially as ladies and as mothers, that we cannot exclude our children in everything that we do. I imagine our culture will soon move and accommodate more in the future. We don't have children stuck in some corner somewhere. Nandimukhi is waving at me. You know, it is a part of us and our understanding. They told me before, you know, your child is a mind on legs, you know. And I'm like, interesting. But actually, it's nice if we see this in a loving way, you know, because if you sit down to chant, or at least when I sit down to chant, especially if I'm rushing around before and I sit down, okay, let me chant Hare Krishna. And then I'm chanting, but my body, I don't know, what's the word? My mind is still rushing around everywhere else. And you can literally see it with children, you know, when they go, I was like, wow, is my mind so quick? Actually, the mind is much faster. I can be here to the Arctic right now, you know, boop, gone. Also, when I was around 25, I asked for some service from my Guru Maharaj, some small service. And part of it was to condense a book that spoke about these coverings. So be it from the false ego to intelligence to mind. It is a layer of how we go deeper into it, or how the senses are controlled. One thing that never really came into my mind then, but I realize is one very significant thing of the last 10 years. It's not very profound, but it's big. Is this sort of element of controlling the speech or the tongue, so to say, just controlling what one says. Unfortunately, a little too opinionated, or a little, you know, a certain way, or in England they used to call me very German. What people understand by German is direct and concise. Like, do you like that? No. You know, an English person would say, well, I would prefer something else perhaps today, you know, like this is a whole. So, but you know, the joy of German nature is that normally you get where you want very quickly. You understand where you're at. And also, from what I have, from what I get from the cultural aspect, is that when you make a friend, normally in this land, they stay a friend, normally. It is not just a surface level relationship. One goes a bit deeper into the relationship, because if you can take that level of directness, normally, it works, but it's not meant normally in a bad way. It's just meant, okay, this is, I don't like it, you know. I should not say more, or sometimes it's not always like this. Sorry to give, what's the word, generalizations. Ja, tut mir leid auch, ich bin ein bisschen neugierig heute. I'm a bit excited today, you know, because I never ever took the dates. Like if you ask me, oh, when did you first come to the temple? When did I first meet Nandi Mukhi? Or when did I meet my groom? I don't know, it's all roughly. But I, especially some months ago, looked up, let me find that ticket, that flight in my own email address. And why is it important? Why is it important? Ramananda says when he leads people to get married, he says, why do we make a fuss of this event? Why is this event, this day, an important time? In English, you'd call it a milestone, something like a wedding. And the point is to have a deep impression within one. It creates something within our consciousness. When we have deep enough spiritual impressions, these begin to overshadow the dark impressions that we've had. Unfortunately, I haven't met anybody who hasn't had some bad experience in their life. That's just a part of material nature, the material world. But when there are impressions that go so deep into us, not just, oh, hey, I had a little nice time there, but so deep, then they empower us in our daily spiritual life. So when I flip back 10 years ago, one day this was the change. This was a change in my life, come to the temple. I really had to make a plan to leave, from London, get on a plane, come here. I got here. I didn't know that same year I would get initiated, or that I would get married, that second initiation would follow, that 2-3 years later the first child would come, that another 2 years and another child would come. I had no idea. I had no idea 10 years later I would be taking my child to school in the local area here, greeting the local parents, Grüß Gott, like, oh, one doesn't know what steps one takes and where you will then be led. And honestly said, were they difficult years? Yes, they were very difficult years, some of them. But they were also the best years that I have had in my entire life. I'm 42 now, so I have another 30 years to go by. And I can also, I see it with my little humble badge of 10 years. Nara Anandimoki behind is sitting, she's been here more than 30 years. So I know that I'm just a child, actually, really. But still, it's like an important time to consider when we flip back into our life what has been achieved. And of course, when you're in the temple, you think, okay, spiritual life, what is there? Can you say now that I give class? 10 years ago, they asked me to give class simply because there were no other devotees here, It's a very funny class. I think all the Ramananda came, we were not together, and I think Katarina was maybe there as well all those years ago. But I was very, what was it? One gave a class which felt like it was based on no realization at all, But at the same time, it was a good experience to do it, Just the times they asked after, I just said no after that. But later on, 10 years later, we sit here together, very nice as ladies with children. One naturally thinks of one's own children when one sees children. It's just a default of it. It's like if I see Nandi Mukhe, I naturally think of my mama also, like a whole. It's a natural part of our relationship and our journey. And coming back to this verse, Devahuti, is very nicely like as a mother approaching her child, because Brahma told her he will reveal spiritual text. And she goes really quite deep into her questions. And the Lord reciprocates and goes further into his answers. And according to later descriptions, Devahuti, she ultimately fulfills enlightenment in transcendental knowledge because she hears and she understands what is been taught by her son. This also gives us all hope, that it's a process of what we go on. Some people came to me after this class that I gave some time ago on reading and said, actually, it's a little bit of a topic. It's not really so much of an interesting point for me to read. And first I used to say I don't have time to read, but when I made time to read, I realized my mind was skipping to a million things which were a little bit more fun. I came from dancing on the streets of London in Harinam, I was like a dancer. My Guru Maharaj had said there is no reason one cannot go back to Krishna dancing and singing. And I was like, oh. And he looked at me like, no, there is no reason that you cannot go back to Godhead singing and dancing. And I was like, okay. And so these were the modes that came in, quite light-hearted, quite, like simple in one sense, like this. So I thought, okay, I'll live here in Simhachalam, make flower garlands, because that was always my service, make flower garlands, and I'll stay here, and that will be the end of my existence, or my life here. And along the way, things changed, but not so much. still believe that if the Lord is so kind to keep me here after all these years, maybe he will keep me a little further. And also in a material way, one looks back and thinks, okay, what did I achieve? I can give you a whole list of things I achieved as I was a manager in England. And I thought, okay, I'm not in these 10 years, I didn't become a good cook, didn't become a good kirtaniya. I'm not as pucker devotee as I was before children. I ran away from the office, more or less, you know. I printed a few books, yeah, maybe I did. There's nothing, you know, it was very humbling to know there was not some major point where you're going to say, oh, Gopigita, you excelled in this or you did this. I think, and in once, humbly, I stayed. The Lord kept me here. He kept me here. And I realized in my life, in the first 2 years, hardly anyone came to me for some sort of advice or help or anything. But as soon as I started to struggle, everybody started to come to me. I was struggling myself. There were people knocking, and I was like, oh, I'm struggling myself. Yes, exactly. We think you'll be able to understand us like this. It's like, yeah, of course I understand. It's very hard, you know, when your mind, your head is telling you, okay, do this, and your mind is saying no, or whatever is going on, or as Kadama Kanana says, can't do it. Now what is going on? And it was really a mystery for me at that moment in time. In the material life, one gets the qualification, tick, you know, then you can do your thing, tick. And here, it was like I tried to fulfill all the things, but just as I was in that moment where things were tough, that was where things really opened up. And I imagine that this was possibly a time where there was a little bit of surrender. Oh, Nandimuki, you have a question. You have to go? Gayatri? Aha, there's no volume? But can we turn? Oh, that's a shame. A few people wanted to listen online, but now if it's too late, then hopefully... Is anyone inspired just to cool down from the Brahmachari ashram to Bashar? Who could maybe do this, huh? Yeah, maybe Zina, maybe better married lady than unmarried, because you're translating, huh? Is this okay? Aha, they just... Hallo Gayatri, was denkst du dann? Ja, ist gut? Ja? In 10 years' time, you can also, maybe 15 years' time, give a lecture. What'd she say, Mama? Mama. Mama. Yeah, momental moments in life. I remember also reading that it is one moment, one spark, and your spiritual life begins. Huh? Would you like to read? Yeah, your mama is a very good singer. You will also become a nice singer. And we spoke about this point of becoming attached to Krishna. And I think, I suppose, it is a progression with the difficult experiences that maybe happened here, so it happened for most here. After these years, from the 18th, from coming here 18 or 19 years ago to the 10 years of living here, I can say that one feels more attached to Lord Nrsingadev. It's a normally in the material life, you know, you do something and you've had enough after something. You don't want to see it again. You know, I was a designer. I don't want to look at design work I thought for some time. I don't want to, enough of this or enough of this or enough of people. But with the Lord, it's a transcendental relationship. The more that one enters into it, the more one realizes what one doesn't know. And then after some time, one realizes how it doesn't matter. One goes, one keeps going anyway to develop that relationship. Each of us has a personal relationship with the Lord. And one of the reasons we're here is to become attached to Sri Krishna. From a purport from the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, if one daily sees the deity in the temple, makes offering by worshipping the deity, chants the holy names of the personality of Godhead, and preaches about the glorious activities of the Lord as much as possible, then he first becomes attached to Krishna. The philosophy in that way is not so complicated. One can go very much deep into what we do, but one just has to stay mostly on track. I know in my business of running around for many years in service, sometimes I didn't take the time to look at what was happening at my relationship with Krishna. It was just an action. Oh yeah, I could give you a list of the different services I read in a day, and after some time I couldn't even give you the list, it was just too much. But one of the things that was missing was this element of reflection. Gurus like Satyananda Swami, Mahatma Maharaj, they talk about this element of looking and reflecting of what is going within oneself. And in that way I wanted that we do a small exercise. Just read what's written, okay, about the exercise. Some of us can access deeper levels of awareness by writing. So a few years ago, someone sent Satyananda Swami a special gift by mail. It was an envelope which had a picture of a blue hand holding a bamboo flute. He said it was obvious that it was Krishna's hand. As well as the flute, the hand had a small note which said, "Trying to connect with you." And underneath was the signature Satyananda Swami, indicating that he had written a letter to the Lord and Krishna had kept it. How intriguing, he thought. He then wanted to inspire us to write our own letter to Krishna. It's not the first time we did this. We did this also when I was doing the japa course last year. But our Amrita is prepared. We should all take a pen and paper. And she said we had the appropriate pens. And soon we will compose our own letter. It will be like a 10-minute writing exercise. We will write a letter in free writing style. So maybe we should distribute the Zina kan distribute even it's okay to beställa ner from the papier och alles. So what we're trying to do in the exercise is to go more internal and to uncover our genuine feelings, could be feelings of separation or other things in regards to Krishna. For example, I miss you, Krishna, or some other feeling we wish to communicate. The title is A Letter to Krishna. So Chitra did this exercise as well. She wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. Actually, she felt it was okay. So I hope it's okay. The subject of the letter should be. So the subject of the letter is my present relation with you, Krishna, Nrsingadev, and how I wish to improve it. If you feel a relationship is not so active at the present moment, if you feel only a desert within, no problem. Write about this too, he writes. Be honest, make your connection, express something, go deep. Or just give it your best, of course. Famous Satyananda Swami words. He writes, if you write this from a real place, it will suddenly reach Krishna. So we can, if you need to, we will start in a minute this exercise. If you want, you can sit before the Lord, if that's easier for you. Before you read, do a little prayer. And then we do the classic. We begin with a ding. We end with a ting. Are there any questions? I repeat again, the subject is, this is your letter to Krishna. So nobody else needs to see this letter. Yeah, so it can be as private as you want to write and as deep as you want to write. And in the letter, it is called the theme is my present relationship with you, dear Krishna, dear Lord Nrsimhadev, and how I wish to improve it. Okay? Yeah. So, yeah, but just please go somewhere you feel comfortable. Maybe you need somewhere to sit or something to lean on, or to stay as you are. I think I will not skip this opportunity. I will write my own letter as well. Okay. We have, like 8, 9 minutes. Oh, sorry, one important thing. This week, write your letter in free writing style. So free writing style means, it's very important, this regular rule, is when you begin to write, you don't stop writing. This is a certain technique. Prabhupada disciple Burjan Prabhu also used it to try to get things flowing. So even if you're writing, dear Krishna, I don't know what to write to you, my mind has gone blank, you write. You don't take your pen off the paper. Yeah? We can go further. Yeah? Does it make sense? Catherine looks blank. Yeah? There's like a style of writing which just lets us unlock the things which are going on. Yes. Please, you're right. Und wenn du musst weiter später schreiben, dann mach weiter. Noch 4 Minuten ungefähr, another 4 minutes or so. So 2 minutes when it's okay. 2 Minuten. Final minute. Letzte Minuten, bitte alle. After this, please you finish those who need to finish. I will say it also in German, Amrita, so you don't need to translate. After this, those who finish, please read through your letter. Die das sind fertig. Ihr könnt in eure Brief so lesen. And when it is relevant, this style of free writing, it helps to unlock, but there could be some things which ich sage, Katharina, wenn du Zeit hast, zum alle auch, dann du kannst den Brief nochmal lesen und durchstricken etwas, das klingt so, das war, aha, das hat eine gute Bedeutung oder ist wertvoll für mich. Ja? Ja, es ist auch da geschrieben, du könntest auch danach deine Brief von der Deity oder auch ist immer vor der die ja auch da lassen, auch manchmal. Oder lassen und dann, ja, nehmen das auch, wenn es ist etwas persönlich dann auch wieder. Ja, genau. Nur kurz muss ich sagen, wenn ich bin erstmal hier gekommen, habe ich immer einen Brief zum Nishingadev geschrieben, hatte ich nicht gedacht, dass die Pujaris würde das lesen. Ich meine, sie hat das so, when I first came out to say in English, I used to write letters to Nishingadev with his present, like really directly to Nishingadev. I didn't know that, of course, the Pujaris read it because they don't know who it's for, or like the whole and of course, but it was a little my childlike vision, like many things I did like a child, like I would deity greeting came in Indian style, I would go stand there, I didn't know, there was, I did it for 10 years, nobody ever told me of a thing, festival, no festival, to see, you have very nice darshan when you go very close to the Lord, if you're on the altar, and I wrote my letters, would pick him some flowers, some dandelions, if nothing else. Silly things like this. This letter, hopefully it was something that you could connect to. And you see, I saw Katerina smile, so I hope there was something which was there. It's part of us realizing, or a step, that our relationship with Krishna is individual and also personal. Are there any questions? We have a few minutes for any questions. Anything one didn't understand or anything? Thank you, Ipak, that you also came. Hare Krishna. For next time, you letter. Nandimukha, you have any commentary or anything that you want to add? Oh, do you come and show him? Come and show him. Oh, nice, huh? So I know. My first letter I ever wrote, I was very ashamed of what I wrote. I was like, oh no, I cannot. And then the letters become subsequently better. It's quite nice. Huh? I keep some of them in here. This is one that I was thinking, another one. It's like a relationship. Sometimes one you take time not just to say a prayer to the Lord, but to write down your prayer, because then one is more thoughtful about what one is praying. I found a prayer that I wrote. Happy? Yeah, look, blessing hand. When one writes a prayer down, I found a prayer I wrote, it was very small, but I found it 5 years later. It was like a bookmark in between. And it was still relevant. Some things are still relevant. This weekend I listened again. My initiation was here. I got initiated 9.5 years ago here. And I listened to the initiation lecture again. And all the points are still relevant. It's amazing transcendental knowledge is like this. To look back and to think of these times are very, very important. In a time of these current world affairs, it's too easy to see the bad things that influence us and go. And yes, there is time that we need to work through and all of this. But on the other side, to look back and see the good things. Look back and wow, I got initiated here. I got married here. Sitting here, I think, yeah, for marriage. Also, get married here, had a child and just presented him to the Lord 12 hours later, the next one. Many amazing experiences, life-changing experience happened here for me. And the best of all of this was that the Lord somehow brought me near to Him. Yeah, what can one say? Huh? When I'm not I would say a good devotee or fixed up or my mind wanders in a million places sometimes. But one is a little attached to Lord Nishingadev. Yeah, just a little attachment. Huh? That's enough. Huh? We thought when it was hard 2 years, we moved away. We got a place somewhere else. We thought, okay, we move. And it described what there was. And they said there was a small Nishingadev, like a copy of our Lord. And Ramananda and I looked at each other and we didn't say anything. We just got off the phone call as soon as possible. And we looked and we said, they don't have Nishingadev. How could we leave Nishingadev? How can we go away from our Lord Nishingadev? You know, like, how is it? And it was like a serious question. It was like, how? And we were like, and then just cannot. And the only thing then we had to pray is that the Lord helps us and forgives any offenses or things we make along the way that keep us from being here, from anything that stops us from being here. Let the Lord please you take care and you forgive anything that's happened. You please help the situation that becomes nicer and bring us and keep us here to you. And I've seen it over the time, over the years. The ones who want to stay here and have that deep impression they want to stay, despite, their inabilities or whatever, the Lord keeps us here somehow. Yeah, we just have to want to be here. And yes, of course, sometimes my prayers, but please make it a bit easier, Lord Nishingadev, it's a little tough. But it stays. So I hope there was some letters of inspiration, and this letter is important. One can also periodically, once a year, or take that time to actually write these letters and connect with the Lord. If one needs, I could also make a copy of this, so, if one is needed. Each step brings us closer. Kishorikun, du hast immer etwas zum Sagen. Gibt nichts zum Sagen? So she finds it a good idea. Ich will übersetzen für Kirti. So she finds it a good idea to go through what? To let it go through the mind? Yep. Mm-hmm. Ich muss es übersetzen. So, tut mir leid, so she said that one prays every day to the Lord, but it's nice for it to go through the mind. What is the difference? Oh, but I didn't let her finish, sorry. Was ist der Unterschied? What is the difference? Was ist Stille? Peaceful, oh quiet, okay. Stille, nackte. So she said she had a deep relationship with the Lord Maurice Krishna in Magdeburg, where she lived in her own apartment, but it was a more quiet relationship, where she read every day. And she got up at 3 every day, and I think she also had 3 altars. We're adding to the story because we know Kishori Kunda, but anyway. And she could cook every day for him, yeah. And here it's different, but here was the exchange with the other devotees. Kishorikun often spoke to me about the association. That was the thing that was not there in Magdeburg, die Gemeinschaft. Swamis and yeah. Yeah, we just have to sit here, and then they come. Oh, Kananamaraj is coming. Oh, yeah. Or Bhakti Vibhava Swami was just here. Okay, yes, I know. Die Gemeinschaft from the devotees macht einen Unterschied. The exchange of the devotees is very deep. Es ist ganz tief, weil manchmal ist es auch mit Devotees, wir kommen nicht klar, aber manchmal wir gehen tiefer. Aber am meisten können wir über alles, immer wenn wir sehen, es in der richtigen Perspektive, dann wir könnten tiefer in unsere Beziehung zum Krishna gehen. Sometimes with devotees, it's not that we always see clearly with each other or we come or whatever or there's a problem, but normally if we see it in the right perspective, we can always go deeper in our relationship with Krishna. And das ist so interessant. I found für mich persönlich, ich habe für mich persönlich gefunden, dass wenn ich hatte Probleme mit Devotees und ich habe diese Zeit zum Reflektieren, ich sehe, dass Krishna gibt mir diese Devotees etwas von vielleicht meine viele schlechte Eigenschaft oder etwas, ich möchte nicht reingucken, zum Sehen, sodass ich kann so mitarbeiten, bearbeiten, durcharbeiten, ich weiß nicht das Wörter. I said I saw through the bad experiences that I have in the temple or with a devotee that Krishna gave me the opportunity to see some quality within myself which I had to work on. And then after I worked through this, it let go. It was almost like some karmic link. Etwas mit Karma zu tun. Ich meine auch nicht eine schlechte Eigenschaft, but etwas so, dass ich bin ein bisschen behaftet, also attached. It was behaftet. And then in this moment where I worked on it, then it sort of let go. Und so ich könnte, in diesem Moment, dass ich habe das wirklich durchgearbeitet, es ist so losgelassen. Und ich könnte nur das Gefühl haben, I had only the feeling, dass der karmisch Ding ist ein bisschen losgelassen. Ne? The karmic thing is a little bit released, so I don't have to come back in the next life to deal with it all. But it's very hard. Es ist ganz, ganz schwer, aber trotzdem schwer. Aber ich hatte wirklich das Gefühl, aha, ist etwas, aha, weg. Ja. She says one sees how relationships change over time. When one becomes closer, it changes in a different direction. Ja. Und das ist, wie das ist manchmal. Huh? I've definitely realized there are different devotees which will help us to bring us closer to the Lord, and other good devotees that may not be the people that you need to go so deep into a conversation with, because you may have a wrong understanding of each other. And a wrong understanding of each other sometimes just leads to complications. It doesn't mean that person is not a good devotee, that you're also a bad devotee, but just sometimes one has to realize with who one connects with, to go a little deeper with these ones, and with others to have, to do some nice sangha with or something else, but not necessarily go into a balance. Wir sind so viele Devotees jetzt, nicht nur hier, aber weltweit. So. Okay, ich denke, der Prabhus kommt langsam rein. Das ist unser Ding, das ist deine Zeit. Ich hoffe, das war etwas schön für euch alle. I hope it was something good for you all. Hare Krishna. Guten Tag. Und heute, wenn jemand Lust ist, ist 5 bis 6, ist Bhakti Shakti Mataji Kirtan heute. Haribol! Oh, danke, Bashar Prabhu.